first and foremost, I consider myself a rock drummer, but I love all different kinds of music. And I found that by studying these other styles and incorporating certain characteristics from them into my playing, I've been able to put together this sort of melting pot approach to playing the drums.
The first time I had to solo a lot in 6 and 3 was with Weather Report. And I got comfortable on it, on that gig, just doing it every night. And I think it was a coincidence that the Tune and Sting's movie, Bring on the Night, was in 6 as well. And I had all this time to get comfortable with it on the road with Weather Report. And so it seemed like a lot of solos that people know me for are in 6.
Billy Cobham influenced me in a way where it was like, you know, just learn how to play like the toms, or just learn how to do drum solos. And because you know, I mean, Buddy Rich had fast hands. He had phenomenal hands, you know. But when I saw Billy play, it was just another way of thinking about playing the drums.
think one of the most important principles involving, or dealing with improvisation, is the 16th note accent patterns that you can deal with, like on the snare. So let's start with, measure full 16th notes. And obviously our accent is where we hit one note louder than the other. So here's an example of like a 1-bar accent pattern. So I think the important thing is that you just take it 1 bar at a time and be able to execute any kind of accent pattern that you hear in your head. All right. That way you can get together in an improvisational situation, just multiple accents, and you can kind of create the whole rhythmic flow that you want as you go along. Here's an example of a few bars where I'm just improvising the accents on the snare drum. Okay. Now, by taking the accent and notes and placing them on the toms, we can create a whole nother feel. Okay, so let's go back to our 1-bar example, which was this. And just simply apply the accent to the toms. Okay, so to slow that down for you, we had the accents on the snare. And we just simply move the hands over to the toms at that point of accent there. Okay, so now using the improvisational principle that we used a second ago on just the snare drum, let's just take the accents and place them around the toms to create other rhythms. Okay, it may sound like this. Okay, but again, I have to emphasize that it's very important that you're very comfortable playing the accent and notes on the snare drum first before you bring in the other toms or the other drums. All right, and the same principle can apply to cymbals as well. Okay, our original accent pattern was this. Okay, now as applied to the cymbals with the bass drum. Okay, so now here's a little improvisation using the accent and notes all around the cymbals. Okay, so now let me demonstrate a little bit about incorporating all 3 elements: accent and snares, accents on the toms, and accents on the cymbals, and see what we can come up with here.
I would take a drum machine and program all these rhythms into it just so I can play off of it.
This is something called crossover patterns, and they enable you to get to certain melodic combinations on the drum set that you might not otherwise be able to get to. All right? Crossovers, as the name implies here, are literally when one hand crosses over another hand. So very slowly you may have something like this. It's at the right hand crossing over the left there. Go faster, it would sound like this. In addition to using this four-way independence concept for like timekeeping applications, there's some pretty cool solo ideas you can get together using it as well. For example, let's say you had your left foot doing a toe-heel splash technique on the hi-hat. You could have your right hand on the right cymbal doing like a one-beat ostinato. Your right foot could be performing like a samba pattern on the bass drum. Then that would leave your left hand open to improvise.
Early on in my playing, I worked on, like most drummers, when you first start, you learn your rudiments and, the alphabet, the ABCs of drumming. And, I always say to other drummers that, when you learn the alphabet of the language, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, as a kid, you memorize them, you get it in there, it becomes a part of you, and then as you build your vocabulary and you speak to people, you're not thinking ABC, you're not thinking the alphabet anymore. You forget that and you just express your thoughts in conversation. To me, technique and the rudiments should be treated the same way. Learn them, spend time on them, get them down pat, practice them at different speeds and different dynamics. And then when it's time to express yourself in the solo context, get that stuff, and use those things to help you move around the instrument. That's all they're for, as far as I'm concerned. They're to help you move around. You want to connect this and this with this.
I first got into Latin drumming when I was studying at the Berklee School of Music in Boston, and my teacher there, Ed Kaspic, took me through a lot of the traditional as well as the contemporary Latin concepts. And I found that this benefited me in two ways. Number one, it gave me a great deal of four-way independence, and number two, it gave me a wide variety of rhythmic ideas and textures to incorporate into my playing. I think the most interesting thing about the solo you just heard was the fact that there was a definite form happening. If you notice, we had like a verse-chorus type thing at the beginning, we had some open improvisation in the middle, and then we had the verse-chorus thing at the end. So it was kind of a definite structure happening there. And that brings me to one of the most commonly asked questions that I get regarding soloing. And that is, when you take a solo, do you improvise the whole thing? Do you make it up as you go along? Or do you have something definite worked out? Now, I mean, obviously there's no right or wrong way to solo, but I found that for me what's very effective is to have a definite structure that you're going to be working with, but then, improvise within that structure.
Sometimes when I solo, I think about like melodies, other tunes, or I'm thinking about like what's going on around me at the time. Something that one of the other musicians played. I'll like take it from there and try to develop that into something in my solo.
I think that we can take some of the pressure off of ourselves by looking at it from the composition standpoint. You know, instead of, you know, saying, oh, well, I've practiced all this stuff and I've got these chops and I've got to use them, you know, why not let the music inspire you to that level of passion, that level of excitement, where all of a sudden, you know, the music feels so good to you that, you know, you just have to use that fast roll where you're playing a zillion miles an hour around the towns, because all of a sudden, you know, the music, the composition has called for it. It's giving you a reason for it.
So your solos then are completely spontaneous, or you have certain sections in your mind worked out?
Usually on a tour where you're playing the same songs every night. This is what has happened. You know, the first week or so of the tour, the first 2 weeks, you're still kind of finding things. As it goes on, you know, you find a couple of signposts that you can use. But still, even if I do get a couple of those, I will still try to live on the edge and look for some adventure every night, so that people really get a sense of the spontaneity, of the fact that, you know, this is happening before me, right before my eyes. I feel